Have you ever fallen in love so deeply that life felt like a dream, only to wake up to a truth that shattered everything? I'm Daniel Harper, 32, a graphic designer from Boise, Idaho, and I married Emily Carter, the woman who made my world make sense. She was kind, witty, with a laugh that could light up a room, and we were the couple who finished each other's sentences, who danced in the kitchen to old jazz records. We built a life together, perfect in its imperfections, until one night, sorting through her childhood keepsakes, we found a photo that changed everything. It was faded, fragile, showing a young woman and a man I knew too well. My father, Robert Harper. Emily, my wife, was adopted, and that photo suggested she was my half-sister. The discovery shook us to our core, unraveling the love we'd fought for. We faced a choice no one should ever have to make, and what we chose defined us, not as siblings, but as two people who loved honestly, even when the truth tore us apart. Before I share my story, I want to know you're here with me. Just say "listening" in the comments, or tell me where you are. I love hearing how far these stories travel. If you believe stories like mine deserve to be heard, show your support. Sometimes the smallest gesture is the loudest truth. Thank you. Here's my story. Boise's autumn air was crisp, the leaves painting the foothills gold when I met Emily Carter 3 years ago at a local art gallery opening. I was there to pitch my graphic design portfolio. She was a school counselor, mingling with colleagues. Her hazel eyes caught mine across the room, her smile warm as she commented on my poster design for the event. "Bold colors," she said. "You've got a knack for catching attention." We talked for hours about art, music, the way Boise's rivers made the city feel alive. She laughed at my terrible puns, and I was hooked by her stories of helping kids navigate tough days. Our first date was a hike in the Boise National Forest, where we got lost for an hour, laughing until we found the trail again. Emily was everything I dreamed of. Kind, sharp, someone who saw the world the way I did. We were inseparable, spending nights cooking pasta in her tiny apartment, planning a future that felt certain. 6 months later, I proposed on a bridge over the Boise River, her yes echoing as kayakers cheered below. We married a year later in a small ceremony at Ann Morrison Park, surrounded by family and friends, her adoptive parents, John and Linda Carter, beaming in the front row. Our life together was simple but full. We bought a fixer-upper in Boise's North End, spending weekends painting walls and arguing over tile colors. Emily's job at a middle school kept her busy, counseling kids through their first heartbreaks, while I freelanced for local businesses, designing logos and websites. We'd stay up late, sharing dreams, maybe a kid someday, a trip to Italy. Emily knew she was adopted, a fact she'd accepted with grace. Her adoptive parents had told her she was left at a Boise orphanage as a baby. No details about her birth parents. "I don't need to know," she'd say. "John and Linda are my family." I admired her peace with it, never pushing her to dig deeper. My own family was close. My dad, Robert Harper, a retired mechanic, lived nearby with my stepmom, Karen. My mom had died when I was 10, and Dad rarely talked about his life before her. We were happy, Emily and I, our love a steady rhythm, until one October evening turned it all upside down. We were in our living room, sorting through boxes from Emily's old apartment, looking for photos for a scrapbook she wanted to make for John and Linda's anniversary. "Look at this," Emily laughed, holding up a childhood Polaroid of her in pigtails. The box held mementos from her adoptive parents, report cards, drawings, a faded orphanage letter. She'd never opened it, respecting the past she'd left behind. But that night, curiosity flickered in her eyes. Maybe there's something about my birth mom, she said, tearing open the envelope. Inside was a photo, edges worn, showing a young woman with Emily's hazel eyes, standing beside a man in his 20s, his arm around her. My heart stopped. That man was my father. Younger, hair darker, but unmistakably Robert Harper, his crooked smile identical to mine. Emily didn't notice, focused on the woman. "She's beautiful," she whispered. I took the photo, my hands trembling. "Emily," I said, my voice low, "this is my dad." She looked at me confused, then at the photo again. Her face paled. "No, it can't be." We sat in silence, the photo between us like a bomb. I drove to my dad's house that night, Emily beside me, clutching the photo. Robert was in his garage, tinkering with an old carburetor, the radio playing classic rock. I handed him the photo without a word. His face drained of color, and he sat heavily on a stool. "Daniel," he said, his voice rough. I didn't know. He took a long breath, then told us the truth. In his 20s, before meeting my mom, he dated a woman named Clara, a free-spirited artist. Their relationship was brief, passionate, but ended when Clara moved away without a word. He never knew she was pregnant. "That's Clara," he said, pointing to the woman in the photo. "If Emily's her daughter." His voice broke. Emily was my half-sister. Emily's hands shook, tears spilling. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" she whispered. Dad shook his head. I swear I didn't know Emily. We drove home, the silence heavy, our world unraveling. In bed, we lay side by side, not touching, the space between us vast. "What do we do?" Emily asked. I had no answer, only questions. The next morning, I called a private investigator, Sarah Klein, recommended by a friend at work. Sarah met us at a coffee shop in downtown Boise, her notebook open. "Adoption records are sealed tight in Idaho," she said, reviewing the photo. "But I can dig into Clara's history, see if we can confirm her as Emily's mother." Emily nodded, her voice small. "I need to know." I showed Sarah the orphanage letter, which mentioned a third party facilitating the adoption. "That's unusual," Sarah said. "Most adoptions go through agencies, not individuals. I'll look into it." Back home, Emily and I tried to act normal, cooking dinner, watching TV. But every glance felt heavy. We didn't know how to be us anymore. That night, I found Emily staring at the photo. "I love you, Daniel," she said, "but if this is true..." I held her, my heart breaking. "We'll figure it out," I said, but doubt gnawed at me. A week later, Sarah called with a twist. "Clara's deceased, died in a car accident 25 years ago. But I found a letter in her estate, addressed to Robert's child. It's unopened, held by a lawyer in Twin Falls." My pulse raced. "And the third party?" Sarah's voice tightened. "A man named Victor Grant, a former adoption lawyer with a shady reputation. He's still in Boise. I'm meeting him tomorrow." Emily and I exchanged looks. This wasn't just about us. It was about a secret someone had buried. I texted Dad, who agreed to meet us at the lawyer's office. The truth was out there, but so was a shadow, and I wasn't sure we were ready for what it held. The Boise winter was settling in, the air sharp, as I sat in my home office, staring at the faded photo of my father, Robert Harper, with Clara, the woman who might be Emily's birth mother. My wife, Emily, and I had built a life of love and laughter, married a year ago in Boise's Ann Morrison Park, but the discovery that she could be my half-sister had cracked our world open. We'd hired Sarah Klein, a private investigator, who'd found a letter in Clara's estate addressed to Robert's child and uncovered a shady adoption lawyer, Victor Grant, tied to Emily's adoption. The truth was out there, but it felt like chasing shadows. Emily was quiet these days, her usual spark dimmed, as she wrestled with questions about her past. We still shared our fixer-upper in Boise's North End, but our late-night talks had turned to tense silences, the photo a constant weight between us. Sarah's call about meeting Victor Grant in Twin Falls tomorrow gave us a flicker of hope, but also dread. What if the truth was worse than we feared? I held Emily's hand that night, her fingers cold. "Whatever we find," I said, "we face it together." She nodded, but her eyes were distant, and I wondered if we could survive this. The drive to Twin Falls was quiet. Emily beside me, Robert in the back seat, the photo tucked in my jacket. Sarah met us at a small law office, where an attorney, Margaret Ellis, handed us the sealed letter from Clara's estate. It was yellowed, addressed in neat script to Robert's child. Emily's hands trembled as she opened it, reading aloud, "To my baby, I'm sorry I couldn't keep you. Robert didn't know, but I hope you find him someday. Clara." Emily's voice broke, tears falling. Robert's face crumpled. "I swear, Daniel, I didn't know she was pregnant." I believed him, but the letter raised more questions. Why had Clara hidden the pregnancy? And who was Victor Grant in this story? Margaret shared Clara's estate records, showing she died in a car accident 25 years ago, leaving instructions for the letter to be held until claimed. Victor Grant arranged the adoption, Margaret said. He was known for cutting corners. Sarah's eyes narrowed. He's got a history of forging documents. I'm meeting him tonight. Come with me. That evening, we met Victor Grant at a diner outside Boise. His gray suit wrinkled, his eyes darting like a man expecting trouble. Sarah took the lead, her voice firm. "Mr. Grant, tell us about Emily Carter's adoption." Victor shifted, glancing at Emily. "Standard case. Orphanage placement, sealed records." I slid the photo across the table. "This is my father with Clara, Emily's mother. Why wasn't he told?" Victor's face tightened. Clara didn't want him involved. She paid me to keep it quiet. Robert leaned forward, his voice low. "I deserve to know my daughter." Victor shrugged. I followed her wishes. Sarah pressed. "Did you forge the adoption papers?" Victor's eyes flickered, but he denied it. Everything was legal. As we left, Sarah whispered, "He's lying." I found a discrepancy in the orphanage files. A second set of papers with a different birth mother's name, not Clara. My heart sank. Someone had rewritten Emily's past, and Victor was the key. Back in Boise, Emily and I sat in our kitchen, the letter and photo on the table. "Clara's not my mother," Emily said, her voice shaky. "Who am I?" I squeezed her hand. "You're you. We'll find the truth." But the strain was growing. We slept in separate rooms now, not out of anger, but because touching felt wrong. The word sister hovering like a ghost. Sarah called the next day with a bombshell. I tracked the second set of adoption papers. "They list a woman named Laura Bennett as your mother, Emily, but she doesn't exist. No records, no history. Victor's hiding something big." She'd also found a connection. Victor had worked for a Boise law firm in the 90s, tied to Robert's old auto shop. "Your dad might know more than he thinks," Sarah said. I confronted Robert at his house, showing him the forged papers. He rubbed his temples, then remembered. Victor was a client, always shady. He handled legal stuff for my shop, but I fired him after catching him skimming cash. He knew Clara, too, helped her sell some paintings before she left. My pulse quickened. Victor wasn't just a lawyer. He was a thread tying our pasts together. Emily insisted on meeting Victor again, her determination overriding her fear. We found him at his office, a cluttered space downtown. Sarah laid out the forged papers. "Laura Bennett's a ghost, Victor. Why'd you fake Emily's records?" His face paled, but he doubled down. "You've got no proof." Emily's voice was steel. I'm proof. I deserve to know who I am. Victor sighed, pulling a file from a locked drawer. Clara wasn't your mother, Emily. She was a decoy. Your real mother was a client of mine, a woman who didn't want her affair with Robert exposed. She paid me to bury the truth. Robert stood, stunned. Who was she? Victor hesitated, then named her. Susan Reed, a married woman from my firm's client list. She died 10 years ago. I felt the room tilt. Susan Reed had been my mom's friend, always at our house when I was a kid. Robert nodded slowly. We had a fling, brief, before I met your mom. Daniel, I didn't know about a child. Emily's eyes filled with tears. So I'm your daughter, Robert, but not Clara's? Victor nodded, defeated. I forged the papers to protect Susan's marriage. We left Victor's office, the truth a heavy weight. Emily was my half-sister, not through Clara, but Susan, a secret buried by a corrupt lawyer. At home, Emily and I sat on our porch, the Boise night quiet. I love you, she said, her voice breaking, but this changes everything. I nodded, my throat tight. We're not siblings in our hearts, but we can't ignore biology. We spent days researching, consulting a geneticist who confirmed our relation through a DNA test, and a therapist who helped us navigate the grief. Sarah uncovered more. Victor had blackmailed Susan's family, profiting from the adoption. We reported him to the Idaho Bar Association, his license now under review. But the bigger question loomed. What did this mean for us? Emily and I attended couples counseling, trying to salvage our love, but each session felt like a goodbye. One night, she found a letter in her adoptive parents' attic, written by Susan to Emily, apologizing for giving her up. I wanted you to have a better life, it read. Emily cried, holding it. She loved me, Daniel, like I love you. I held her, knowing we were nearing the end. Sarah's final report came a week later. Victor's firm had a history of falsifying adoptions, profiting from desperate parents. She'd connected with another adoptee, Michael, who'd been placed by Victor under similar lies. Michael agreed to testify against him, strengthening our case. Robert met us at a park, his eyes red. I failed you both, he said. I should have known. Emily hugged him. You're my dad now. That's enough. But for us, it wasn't. Emily and I sat in our living room, the scrapbook we'd started abandoned. I can't be your wife, she said, tears falling. But I'll always love you. I nodded, my heart breaking. We're more than blood, Emily. We're the truth we built together. We decided to part, not out of shame, but to honor the love we'd shared as strangers who became everything to each other. The Boise winter wrapped our North End home in a quiet chill, the kind that seeps into your bones. Emily and I sat on our couch, the faded photo of my father, Robert Harper, and the letter from Susan Reed, Emily's biological mother, on the coffee table between us. We'd built a life of love, married in Boise's Ann Morrison Park, laughing over bad puns and dreaming of Italy. But the truth that Emily was my half-sister, uncovered through a tangled web of Victor Grant's forged adoption papers, had fractured our world. Private investigator Sarah Klein had exposed Victor's lies, revealing Susan's affair with my dad, and a cover-up to protect her marriage. We'd reported Victor to the Idaho Bar Association, and his license was under review, but the bigger question loomed. What did this mean for us? Emily's eyes, red from crying, met mine. I love you, Daniel, she said, her voice steady despite the pain. But we can't stay married. I nodded, my chest tight. We'd consulted a geneticist, a therapist, even a lawyer, confirming the biological truth we couldn't escape. Our love was real, born of two strangers who found each other, but the blood tie, demanded a choice. We were choosing to part, not out of shame, but to honor what we'd been. As I looked at her, I knew this wasn't the end of our story, just a new chapter. The next morning, we met Sarah at a cafe in downtown Boise, the smell of espresso grounding us as she updated us on Victor Grant. "He's not just a small-time crook," she said, sliding a folder across the table. "I found 3 more adoptees with forged records, all linked to Victor's firm in the 90s. He profited by charging wealthy clients to hide their secrets, like Susan's." The folder contained affidavits from Michael, the adoptee we'd connected with, and 2 others, each describing falsified birth records. Sarah's eyes were fierce. The AG's building a case. Fraud, extortion, maybe jail time. I glanced at Emily, who was reading the affidavits, her jaw tight. "These people deserve answers," she said, "like I did." Sarah nodded. "You 2 started this. Michael's testifying, and the others might too." A twist emerged. One adoptee, a woman named Rachel, claimed Victor had blackmailed her adoptive parents, threatening to expose their infertility unless they paid. "He's been running this scam for decades," Sarah said. "Your case could bring him down." Emily squeezed my hand under the table, a silent thank you for pushing forward. We drove to Robert's house that afternoon, the Boise foothills dusted with snow. My dad had been quiet since learning Emily was his daughter, guilt etched into his face. We sat in his living room, the photo of him and Susan on the table. "I should have known about you, Emily," he said, his voice rough. "Susan never told me." Emily's eyes softened. "You're here now. That matters." She'd started visiting Robert, building a cautious bond, not as a father yet, but as someone tied to her past. I watched them, my heart aching but proud. Emily wasn't losing family. She was gaining it, even if it meant losing us. Robert handed us a box of old letters he'd found in his attic, some from Susan. "She wrote these after we split," he said. "I never read them." Emily opened one, her voice trembling as she read. "Robert, I gave our baby a chance at a better life. Forgive me." The words hit like a punch. Susan had loved Emily, just as Emily loved me, but secrets had stolen their chance. "We're fixing this," Emily said, looking at me. "For her, for us." I nodded, knowing our fight wasn't just personal anymore. Back home, we met with our therapist, Dr. Laura Chen, who'd been helping us navigate the emotional wreckage. "You're grieving a marriage," she said, her voice gentle, "but you're also redefining love." Emily and I had spent weeks talking, crying, sometimes laughing at memories of our hikes and kitchen dances. We decided to annul our marriage, a legal step that felt like signing away a piece of my soul. The lawyer, Tom Reynolds, handled it quietly, ensuring no public record mentioned our relation. "You're protecting each other," he said, filing the papers. "That's rare." Emily moved out the next week, renting a small apartment near her school. I helped her pack, each box a reminder of our life together. At her new place, she hung a photo from our wedding, not as a wife, but as a memory of love that was real. "We're not erasing us," she said, hugging me. "We're just changing." I held her, memorizing her warmth, knowing this is goodbye in one form, but not all. Sarah's investigation hit a climax when the Idaho Attorney General raided Victor's office, seizing records that exposed a network of falsified adoptions across the Northwest. An ex-post from an anonymous account, Boise Justice, leaked details of the scandal, naming Victor and linking to a victim support group Michael had started. The post went viral, and Emily joined the group, sharing her story anonymously to help others. One night, she called me, excited. "Rachel's meeting with the AG. She's got proof Victor extorted her family for $50,000. This could put him away. I smiled, hearing her spark return. You're making a difference, Em. She paused. You started it, Daniel. You didn't let me stay lost. The next day, Robert invited us to dinner, his first as Emily's dad. They laughed over old car stories, and I saw Emily's smile, the one I'd fallen for, light up again. I stayed quiet, happy for her, but missing the us we'd been. A month later, Victor was indicted for fraud and extortion, facing 15 years. The adoptees, including Emily, were offered settlements from his firm's assets, but she donated hers to a children's advocacy group. It's not about money, she told me, standing in her school's courtyard where she counseled kids. It's about truth. I nodded, proud but aching. We'd annulled our marriage, but we weren't strangers. Emily visited Robert weekly, building a father-daughter bond. And I'd see her at family dinners, our connection now a friendship forged in honesty. One evening, I spoke at a Boise community event about adoption reform, sharing our story without names. A young woman approached afterward, teary. My brother was adopted. Your story's helping us ask questions. I handed her Sarah's contact, feeling purpose settle in me. At home, I kept a sketch I'd drawn of Emily on our first hike, her laugh captured in pencil. It sat beside my dad's old wrench, a reminder of steady hands and honest choices. 6 months later, I stood at a Boise art gallery, showcasing my designs. Emily came, her smile warm, Robert by her side. I'm proud of you, she said, hugging me as friends, not lovers. She'd started a support group for adoptees, her strength inspiring others. I'd taken up hiking again, finding peace in the foothills, designing for nonprofits that helped kids like Emily once was. Victor's trial was ongoing, his victims' stories unraveling decades of lies. Emily and I weren't married anymore, but we'd kept our promise to face the truth together. Our love had been real, and so was our goodbye. If this story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters. Thank you for being here.